Madhav, you also been to graduate school. क्यों गए भाई grad school?
So, simple answer. I thought that I had got enough out of the Delhi University system. It could not give me more than that. And therefore, I needed to do more learning.
Right.
And therefore, I made the transition to. I had the opportunity of either pursuing my master's in Delhi University. I'd got a good rank. I think I ranked third in the university.
Overall?
In the entrance, yeah.
Jesus.
And or I had an offer from SOAS as well. So I thought, why not give that a shot?
SOAS University of
The
London.
School of Oriental and African Studies, affiliated to the University of London, but now it's just known by its acronym, which is SOAS. Yeah, SOAS.
Yeah. So you picked SOAS and you MA'd in South Asian history.
Yeah, in modern South Asian history.
In the Amritsar Nats of 1915, I think, or 1905.
So yeah, the entire title of my master's dissertation was Student Protests and Resistance in Colonial Amritsar and Lahore from 1918 to 22.
1918 to 22, right. I was talking to another master student. He was actually my TF for my mind and behavior course last time. And he did his MPhil and theories of mind, basically. That's what he did his MPhil in. And he was telling me a grad school is way different than your undergraduate school, than undergrad. You have way more independence, which is a good thing and can be an extremely bad thing as well. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of students just go into grad school thinking that it's the next step, it's what they have to do. And they don't really know what to expect from grad school. And when they get that, they're like, oh, this is not what I thought it would be like. So can you share some of your experience in graduate school, how it's different from undergraduates, and share some wisdom that prospective third or fourth years should know before they head to graduate school, especially in history?
I think perhaps an Ashoka undergraduate would be much more equipped for graduate school abroad than I was. Because the manner in which we operated in Delhi University was that our assignments were quasi-plagiarized.
What is that?
In the sense that we were only expected to pick up, certain sections from different books and readings and assimilate them and write an assignment.
Right.
The expectation was not that you'd come up with an argument of your own, which is what you're taught.
Yeah, thinking originally,
argument of your own, and then coming up with evidence to support that argument. Right. So I was not taught to think independently and think originally and think critically. Therefore, initially, when I remember for this course on Islam in South Asia, I had an assignment and I just summarized the historiography on the Mughal Empire. And my instructor said, but what do I do with this? What is this all about? Where is the argument? And that really set me thinking that, I had to do some thinking of my own.
Yeah.
So that was one. Two, there is a lot of, I think, emphasis on writing itself in Ashoka. You have an ecosystem which supports or which really emphasizes academic writing and how you go about it and how you go about analyzing arguments and all of that.
Right. We have a department for writing.
You have a department for writing as well. None of that was there in Hindu. Yeah. So I think one major learning that I had from SOAS was that it taught me how to write. By pushing me to think originally, and with all the comments that I'd get for each assignment, you don't get that kind of feedback, honestly, in the undergraduate system in Delhi University.
Right.
There, every professor would examine even a 1,000-word book review and look at all your commas and full stop and give you detailed feedback of where you went wrong, what you could have done, what are the aspects that you examined, and all of that. So I think
what facts you got wrong, or what?
Maybe what facts, or maybe errors of argument as well, perhaps.
Right.
How you could have improved on a particular argument, how perhaps you missed out a specific facet of a book.
But the emphasis was not on putting out an argument and supporting it.
Yeah, how you got a particular emphasis wrong and all of that.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of training was very productive for me. It was only after I completed my master's from SOAS that I actually started writing as well. If not academically, at least for digital dailies and other platforms. And,
right.
Right. So
I have a question. So it's very interesting to me when, just like any other Indian male that wears glasses. I was preparing for the JE because that's a rite of passage that my people go through. So, and my justification for that was, well, IITs are the best colleges in India. IICs are the best colleges in India. TU is the best university in India, has the best colleges. Therefore, you have to go to these institutions. But then when I talk to people who've been to these colleges and have been to other universities as well, they tell me that the teaching faculty there isn't the best, really. They don't teach you how to think, which is what I think an education should equip you with. Why do you think that is? I mean, you're getting into the best colleges, rank wise, at least in India, but then it's not teaching you how to think. So why is that?
I think that's a big question. 3 or 4 decades back, some of these institutions had the most stellar professors. You know, they had professors, and even there are still some departments where the odd professor or so can really, shampoo your brain and force you to think in different ways.
I have no clue what that meant from means.
I just came up with
Shampoo your brain.
Yeah.
Please explain.
Shampoo your brain in the sense, really kind of force you to think differently.
Okay.
Yeah. So but that odd professor is not the norm.
Right? Yeah.
And that's also because the quality of appointments has gone down. I think there's lesser commitment to teaching in the public university system because they feel now they're not attracting the best students.
So they're driven more towards research.
They're not even producing the best kind of research. That's the sad part. There is, for want of a better word, a lack of commitment, to teaching, to the taught,
From the institution and teachers in general.
From institutions and from teachers.
Yeah.
But the fact was that some of these public universities were visualized as centers of excellence by their founders.
Mm-hmm.
Think of JNU and its Center for Historical Studies. It had the finest historians.
Yeah.
Sarvapalli Gopal and Ramila Thapar and K.M. Panikkar. And you name them and they were there. And they've trained generations of historians who you pick up, you look at faculty pages at history departments abroad. You're bound to find a professor or an associate professor who was trained at JNU, for example. But that's no longer the case. That's no longer the case because now people are being appointed based on their ideological affiliation and their merit.
As you mentioned earlier, our current
yeah.
government does not exactly support free thinking.
Yeah.
Counter that by not taking down this video. But that's interesting. So I'm thinking about doing a master's degree if this podcast doesn't work out. So, just in general, what's it like to do a master's compared to doing an undergrad?
A sea change. First, you're managing everything on your own, from cleaning your toilet to buying your groceries to washing your dishes.
That doesn't sound that different from, my life is a bit different, okay.
Yeah. I at least was not used to that. Because I lived in a PG and you had your food.
Oh, you didn't live on campus?
Yeah. I lived in a PG, you had your food taken care of. There was a cleaning lady who would help you with the cleaning and all of that. You weren't engaged in everyday labor. So
that's preparing you for the life if your master's degree does not work out.
So there is that labor of living,
right.
That
labor of living. Wow.
That also to kind of sustain yourself on a daily basis, you need to engage in. There is that academic workload, which is quite a bit because the taught component is very less. Undergraduate, there's a lot of teaching which happens.
Yeah.
On average, you have 5 to 6 classes every day. At the master's level, I probably had 3 or 4 hours of classes a week.
Oh, that's not much compared to undergrad.
Yeah, and they expect you to put in most of the work yourself in terms of doing the readings.
So there are less courses. Less classes.
There are less classes.
Class time, but more work on the set.
Yeah,
that you have to put in.
And you have to manage yourself. And sometimes, you can spend some of that time perhaps binge watching something and not doing your reading.
Yeah.
There's no one to hold you account because there's also most of the evaluation which happens happens on the basis of assignment. It's not like you'll be tested at the end of there'll be a semester end examination or something. Although that is true for some courses, but usually the norm is that you're judged on the basis of
Assignments.
So
The work you
you
produce.
largely you're left to yourself.
So it's pretty much transitioning to complete adulthood.
Yes, it is. And the third component of it is the social life. My sense. See, I feel I kind of transitioned to grad school at a time when I was very socially awkward and intern. Therefore,
you were 21 back then. I'm assuming
21. I was
21. Okay.
And I felt I needed, perhaps in retrospect, I feel I needed more life experience before I entered grad school.
Oh, more life like working, interacting with more people,
or traveling, or interacting with more people, all of that. Because I was very self-conscious, and I would sometimes sit in the junior common room and think, oh, but this is my classmate. Oh, but would she even remember me from the class?
Should I go
and talk to her or not? And that conversation would keep happening in the head without actually me saying hi.
Doing anything,
And then the other aspect was I never drank. I was a teetotaler.
Teetotaler, I don't know what that means.
Teetotaler means someone who does not drink alcohol.
Oh, I call them someone who does not drink.
Yeah, someone who...
Very easy language, yeah.
Yeah, someone who does not drink is a teetotaler. So, and a lot of social life in London revolves around the pub culture. In the sense, you go for a drink and that's where you get to know a person.
Yeah.
You interact and you talk and you
like at a bar perhaps. Okay.
Yeah. And in case you go to parties, a couple of parties I went to, and in case you're not drinking, the other person feels judged because they think not
enjoying yourself.
You're not enjoying yourself, and you feel judged because they think that you're not drinking, and so it's a strange kind of an awkward kind of situation, right? So that was the second, I'd say, barrier. The third was also I realized that I'd made a transition from having a very close group of friends and having like a good gang in Hindu to now expecting that I'd be able to make a similar kind of
group at London,
which does not work. Friends, they're a little more than acquaintances, because the thing is, there is more regularity and consistency in undergraduate friendships. You are part of the same societies and clubs, you attend the same classes, you go to the same places and all of that. Whereas here, people are pursuing their different courses and they have different timelines and schedules, and you're trying to fit people into your time, in your schedule and things like that. So navigating that kind of social world was something that I was not equipped for. So I found myself rather lonely, and I think I've spoken about this on a podcast as well, where I don't know, summarize my time as rather pessimistic sense. My time in London is lost and lonely in London, or something like that kind.
Lost and lonely in London.
So yeah,
I
that
love
was
the
one
alliteration.
aspect of it. But I think the other was also that I traveled a bit. I mean, not extensively. I traveled a bit on my own as well in London, and I got to explore a lot of heritage as well. I mean, the heritage buff that I am. So visited a lot of museums and galleries. Got a student art pass made, so that I had free access to most museums and galleries. So I explored that. I think, my time in London, I don't know whether it was well spent or not. I really feel in retrospect there could have been much more to that experience, but it taught me some important lessons.
I think it taught you to use whatever future experiences you have. Try to use them in such a way that they're the richest experiences that you can possibly have. That's such a terrible phrase. What I mean is, future whatever experiences you have, you try to get the most out of those experiences. I think that's what you learned from London, perhaps. Yeah. I remember when I took a gap year, my parents are I got admission to good colleges and in outside India, and because my parents are financially well off, they could afford to send me there, which is what they said at least. And I'm like, I want to take a gap year. I took a defer year technically, but that's a different story. So I took a gap year, and during my gap year, I was very focused on just working on myself. Maybe a project, maybe a book that I'm reading, just doing things myself, right? And I felt like I was rushing into college. I felt like there was a lot I had to experience and learn before I even started undergraduate years. And the day I started college, I could see its benefits that second. Because, first of all, during my gap year, I was extremely just by myself. I don't have any siblings. And all my friends were off to college. So I spent just months with just myself in my own head. And while that may sound very lonely, it was to an extent, but it taught me so much just about myself and people in general. And I think it's because of that that I can do that I can walk up to people and ask them who they are, what do they do, and stuff. So I think, would you say that if you would have taken a gap year before masters, you would have gotten a more richer experience of living a master student's life?
I think that would have definitely helped me. Anchored me. He would have,
Anchored you.
Yeah, anchored me in the sense that there was an anxiety on my part back then that I have to follow this straight track from bachelor's to master's to PhD. And as it turns out, that wasn't true. That was not supposed to happen, or that didn't happen. So I think I would have gained some perspective that you can pace things and you can do them differently as well. You don't need to do them sequentially or in a linear fashion. So I wish I had that foresight back.
Taking a gap year. So to students who are just rushing into masters, because I talk to third years and fourth years, and a lot of them are planning on doing master's degrees or PhDs. And when I ask them, well, why do you want to do a PhD or a master's? They usually either go blank or they default to the answer that, well, that's what you're supposed to do. Or on their part, I just see a lack of thinking. I feel like they can talk to more PhD students or master students just to see what it's like before they commit themselves to a 2-year or 5-year program, right? That's a huge time commitment. So to those students who may be 21, 22, as you were, what would you say to them? Or maybe hesitating to take a gap year, or maybe hesitating to do that, I don't know, go to a tour or something, travel a bit, or just to try out something that they haven't before. What would you want to say to them? If anything at all.
I'd say that if you have a definitive sense of what you want to do at this juncture, then maybe you should think more about it. I think the only certitude in life is that life challenges our certitude.
Oh, that's nice.
So we might think at the age of 21 that, we want to specialize in a particular field. But gradually we realize that, we're meant for something different. And therefore the one trait which I'd emphasize that all college students should cultivate is that trait of openness. Openness to what life throws it. Openness to changing your own, changing your own point of view and changing your own beliefs and conviction. And a certain openness to others as well, being receptive to
different perspectives,
and learning from the experiences of others, while at the same time reassessing and reevaluating your own experiences as you go along.
Right. So being more open-minded, I suppose.
Yeah.
And taking whatever's useful, listening to other people, and taking whatever's useful and fitting that into your own framework of thinking and all. Interesting. You also touched upon social anxiety there. That you did a master's program at a point in your life where you were a bit socially awkward, socially anxious. And you talked about your experience, which I'm sure a lot of people have shared with, just sitting next to a girl and thinking, does she remember me from class? Should I talk to her? All of those things there. I'm sure a lot of people have been through, especially straight guys. So I remember there was this one time in school, in 10th grade, because I did my schooling during COVID. I used to have lunch alone because that was the only quiet time I'd get, and I needed my headspace. So actually, no, I did not have my lunch alone. I used to have a lunch with a group of friends. I don't know kya bol raha hu main. And there was this another group of friends, and I don't know, they were having a really interesting conversation one day. I'm like, I want to jump into this conversation. This seems so interesting. But I'm like, I was so hesitant. I'm like, should I walk over there? Would they think I'm weird? What if I said, can I just sit with you guys? What would they think of me? And all of that nervousness and anxiety. And now looking back at it now, I was thinking, bhai, just do it. Kya farak padta hai? Right? Now I'd give that person a hug right now. So that's one of my experiences with social anxiety. But To you, did you kind of overcome that to some extent during your master's degree or after it, perhaps?
I think it took some time. So I think one aspect of it was just being confident in who you are, perhaps. And I think what really helped me was that as I started writing, and as I would get feedback from people,
Yeah.
you know, about what I was writing. Some people would drop in a mail, maybe, and write to me. They really liked it. It really touched them, or whatever. That contributed some, restored some degree of self-confidence. That was one. Two, I think, the pandemic years were pretty bad because, I'd gone from being away from home for 4 years to having to live at home for almost a couple of years. And,
When did you do your master's again?
So I finished my master's in 2019.
So you did it, started at 2017, I'm assuming 2018.
2018, yeah.
2018 you
2018
started, okay.
September is when I started my master's. 2019 September is when I finished my master's. End of September. And then I came back. And then, I worked for I interned for The Wire for a bit. Started writing, mostly freelancing. But I was at home for a better part of the years before I started working at Ashoka, which was in 2022 of September. And so, that was a tough time in the sense that I'd been away from home for 4 years. I was used to my own space, and, I felt that my freedom was curtailed while being at home, and, the pandemic compounded that because you couldn't go out and you couldn't interact with people or talk to them. So I think a lot of that which I regained was when I really started working at Ashoka, perhaps.
The sense of independence and
this sense of so Ashoka helped me in multiple ways. One is it restored my sense of independence. I now had my own space. I now also developed a community of my own. I've been able to forge friendships with even undergraduate students, and
hopefully I'm one of them.
Yeah. So with teaching fellows and PhD students, and I resumed playing football here. I used to follow Arsenal at one point in time, but I'd lost interest along the way because of other commitments.
Yeah.
And I started following the Premier League again. Connecting with different aspects of yourself. Ashoka really helped me save me from my quarter life crisis in some ways. By giving me a sense of purpose, giving me economic independence, giving me a job that I love.
Loved. Past tense there.
That I love. Sorry. That's a slip.
I'm kidding.
Giving me a job that I love because, for most people, archiving must be boring, but I think it's pretty exciting for someone who loves history.
Yeah.
Scrolling through old documents and getting to read about new subjects every day is something that I love, and I love communicating that passion to other people I encounter as well, and telling them about archiving, what the archives are exactly. So I think Ashoka has done a world of good to me that way, and I think I've honed my social skills here, perhaps, and also I've become more comfortable in my own skin.
Right.
And that has happened with age as well. That has happened with faltering, falling, failing, learning, all of that.
The first thing you said when I asked you the question is knowing something along the lines of knowing who you are and having your confidence in yourself. In my experience, that the only reason I have confidence, that sounds so arrogant, that I have confidence is because I know what matters to me and I work towards those things. And so I know the story of who I am. Therefore, whenever I do anything, whenever I interact with people or do anything that people might say is will make them feel conscious, I'm like, well, it doesn't matter to me what people think because I already know who I am, right? So it's not going to matter what story they tell because I know that the real story is right here, the one that I'm writing.